G'day everyone and welcome to another episode of Eco Convos with Dan. I'm your host, Dan Vanderhook, and today we're actually talking to Sarah Fea from BEAR Biologics. Now, we had a great chat. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this one. We talked about nutrition, we talked about health, both mental and physical, and we talked about the importance of soil health and what that does to the end product for our cropping. Now, Sarah knows a lot about this. She does consultations with farms all over the place. Look, it's a great chat. You're going to enjoy it. I'll talk to you soon. Hi everyone and welcome to Eco Convos with Dan. I'm your host Dan Vanderhook and we are here having a chat with Sarah Fea from BEAR Biologics. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, look, this is going to be a really fun chat, Sarah, and you've got quite a background. So we're going to try and cram this into a conversation if we need to. I think we may need to come back to it for a second chat, I reckon. So Sarah, tell us a little bit about BEAR Biologics. You guys do consultations and things like that?
Yeah. So not only one-on-one consultations with clients, but I also do events. So run events as well. So okay, I guess I learnt, yeah.
So what sort of events do you run?
I guess light bulb turning on ones, I suppose. Information that I was grappling to find myself. I decided, not to just learn it on my own, I guess, to create an event so that we were learning together. So, either international or Aussie thought leaders to create an event where, I could learn, but also, my community could learn with me, basically. So I've hosted people from overseas as well as Australia.
That's awesome. I mean, it's certainly
and the agricultural and the health space. Yeah.
Okay. Well, certainly person after my own heart for that. But that's how this podcast started out as well. Was so we could all learn together. So I absolutely love that. So, Sarah, what's your background?
So grown up on the land. So my whole life's been on the land. First of all, on a sort of mixed enterprise. Animals and cropping, the Western Downs, sort of in the Mooney area. And I guess, so my dad's very much an animals person, and I'm very comfortable in that space. My brother's more a lover of diesel and all things greasy. So he was lucky that Dad saw that and pivoted into more a cropping enterprise when John was quite young. Here on the downs, sort of near Yarranlee, Pittsburgh. So, so my last year of boarding school, I moved to that location. So I've sort of seen, the full range of enterprises, I suppose, in my background, which has helped.
That's a great experience. So
and then I guess I've pivoted from, being quite, I guess, in the conventional space. After going to uni at UNE in Armidale, I guess I've been in soil health, I guess, probably the whole time. Even my honours project was focused on nitrogen mineralisation potential, so really looking at biology way back then even, and how it functioned and, depending on water cycle and all those sorts of things. So lots of the jobs were in the soil testing companies and things like that. And then cotton was something my family was growing. My brother was keen on cotton. So the main full-time job that I landed was cotton CRC out of Dalby. So very good R&D extension position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Literally doing trials and then sharing the IPM strategies and the results from those trials, which I guess has set a framework for how I do interact with my clients and show them the whole picture, I guess. So that was a very conventional way, but led me to actually have overload of chemical myself personally, literally from all that monitoring and plant mapping and observing of what the different products were,
Yeah.
and how they affected things, as well as myself. I
Yep.
did also get to see a lot of biologicals, though, that we were tinkering with, and even organic cotton trials and things, and music, even playing music to crops.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah,
before you
yeah.
go, I've got to
So
ask about that.
we pushed some paradigms.
Yeah, that's the way. All right.
Yeah,
So did you find just did you find results in that? Because I saw that
yeah,
MythBusters
yeah,
episode where they did
definitely.
that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely did. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Can
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think that people find that quite interesting.
Yeah, well, I guess there is, plenty of literature to show the effect of the different frequencies, because
Yep.
really everything is energy, an
Yep.
exchange of energy, really, and
Mm.
music's just a form of energy. So, and it was sort of more the classical, like Mozart, that sort of stuff that we were
Yeah.
playing. And yeah, I mean, I'm also a user of essential oils, so Young Living. And in one of our books for that, you actually can see for the different organs of the body, you can actually have the different notes that you should play to help heal that. Yeah,
And so
pretty
that's
cool.
working with the frequencies and working with that vibration.
Yeah, yeah, yep, yeah.
That's fascinating.
So there's even I'd have to refer to that book right now, but there's even I guess there's a frequency we could be trying to ask everyone to play music of that certain note to share the feelings of hope, which is
yeah,
probably something that we need to be doing right now. Yeah,
definitely. We need to have that just broadcasting as white noise in the background, I reckon, on day-to-day
yeah, yeah,
lives.
yeah. Well, someone actually told me the other day that the frequencies of things are set at in America are actually of a frequency that's more unsettling, whereas in Europe they've changed it to a frequency that is actually more calming. So that sounded interesting. I don't know
Wow.
whether there's something in that, but maybe something to explore. Yeah.
Well, I think it's one of those things. I mean, I know. Sorry, we're getting a little bit off topic here, but the idea
Okay.
of
I'm
things
good at that.
going, but that idea of alarmist things that you see in the media. I mean, we really saw that happening through the 9/11, the war on terror, the difference between what our visuals were here and the visuals over in the States. So not necessarily just in the audio levels, but the visual differences were huge, and they were creating a very, very different response. Still getting same attitudes and things like that, but it was that alarmist sort of feeling that was coming across was what they were trying to create was panic and fear, and that's where we are all susceptible to that sort of thing.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
So
and I think you are actually more susceptible to that. I mean, this probably takes some people for a bit of a leap of faith to understand this comprehension, but even the health of the food that you're consuming and actually the journey that food takes can actually influence our state of calm as well. So,
absolutely. So that goes into what we are, what we eat,
yeah,
doesn't it?
Yeah, 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 that's right. So, an animal that's grass fed and had a fairly calm life, um, is actually better for us to be consuming than, those in high stress environment
That's it.
in a
And
feedlot.
that's going to go for the same for plants as well. Something that's been coming. Surely that would be, if it's coming from a nurturing environment, that's going to transcend across through to us as well.
Oh, absolutely. I guess part of the challenge that we have for people to as consumers, and I mean we're all consumers, but a lot of people to comprehend that, because an animal we can more identify with the emotions of, we're not necessarily understanding that essentially on the cellular level there's not a hell of a lot of difference, other than a couple of different organelles that are slightly different, but there's a hell of a lot of similarity in functionality, and everything comes from the same toolbox. The one periodic table is just put together in different manner.
Just how it's done. And look, I think that giving out essentially positive vibes and positive energies, you can test that out. My wife, we gave her she got a frangipani tree from my kids for Mother's Day one time, and because of the leaves and the way it was set up, she called it Liberace, which was actually quite cool. But we actually had another one as well. And we planted them both at the same time. But Liberace itself was planted out the back, and it got a lot of attention, a lot of love because it got named, and that feeling was there. The one we had planted out the front that just got watered and got kind of ignored. Yeah, it survived. It lives. It still flowers and things like that. But Liberace has just gone through the roof in terms of how it's progressed, and the only difference it's had, other than a slight difference in where it's been planted, has been that energy, and it's been really, really fascinating to watch.
Mm, mm. Well, I mean, there's a lot more in terms of what water carries to in terms of all of this, Emoto's work.
Yeah.
And the actual of how he showed the different structure of water according to the environment it was in, or even how you spoke to it, which, when you think put it in perspective, 90% of your brain is water.
Yeah.
And on average, 70% of your body. So if water can be influenced by, structurally, by the frequency and the positivity around it, it makes sense, doesn't it? Really?
Makes absolute sense.
Whether a plant or ourselves or animal,
yeah,
going to be influenced by that. Yeah.
Everything.
But there's a hell
connected.
of a lot more to water than hydrogen and oxygen combined. And I mean, the sheer fact that those two things on their own are quite explosive, yet when they put together, it's all of life requires it. So
yeah,
pretty cool.
Absolutely, it's cool. So Sarah, you said before you went to UNE. What were you studying at UNE?
Rural science. Yeah.
Rural science.
So a 4-year degree. Yeah, rural science. Yep.
Okay. So so now you're working. So BEAR Biologics, is that your company itself?
Yes. Yep. Okay. My own company. Yep.
So it's
and that's a trading name. The company's Ag, but the trading name's BEAR Biologics. Yep.
Okay. So through your consulting, you're saying before that you're doing you do your courses, and you do I'm sorry, I've lost the word now. You do your different events and things like that you're doing. In terms of what you do with your consulting, what sort of stuff are you helping people out with?
Well, I guess I pretty much do it all through a holistic context.
Yeah.
So, again, depend on the individual client really, but I guess it's assisting them in that planning right through from looking at soil tests often initially, looking at the health of the system, and then planning their rotation forward, or and whether that's just a crop or a pasture, and then how that interacts with what animal they've got in the system, and helping them. I guess I quite like problem solving, that sort of stuff, and I love value adding and love trying new enterprises. So often that is factored in, or also where we're improving the actual equipment, so tweaking design of machinery and things like that. But I guess it's not, I guess, BEAR Essential, so BEAR actually stands for BEAR Essential Agricultural Resource.
Okay.
So, I guess part of that is helping them connect to the fact that, resources, often people just think of the soil and the water and the plants and air and that sort of stuff, but connecting them to the fact that they themselves are a resource.
Yeah.
So the family resource, how well that's running. So often succession planning comes into it.
Yeah.
And then even the team that they might feel, how well is things working with their accountant, their business, their bank, helping them improve conversation, or even, pivoting, changing. And I suppose, in the regenerative ag space.
Well, that was actually going to be the next question I had.
Yeah.
So,
building that community around them.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, the thing is that in the regenerative ag space, there is such a community, a community around it. The people who are, looking more along these ethical on those ethical directions, there is that that feeling of everyone we're in it together. We're not in competition. It's not about being in competition with each other. It's about actually working with each other. And that's certainly something I've really, really found in talking to people in the space. Have you found that as well?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And actually I'm part of a coaching community called Soil Restoration Farming,
Okay.
which is sort of probably into our second month as such.
Yeah.
We get together on a Wednesday, once a month. At the end of the month, we have like a thought leader or educational leader that might be international or local,
Yeah.
educating us as coaches, and then the plan is to roll that out, or where we'll be sharing that sort of education to farmers. We're also keen on, I guess, there's a strategy in industry to bring consultants in. They might get jobs with elders or nutrient or whatever, but
Yeah.
we really got to find a way to educate more coaches or consultants in the regenerative space, because there's already probably not enough of us for the demand. And if people, the kids, there's really only the university at Lismore, which is
Yeah.
only in its second year of doing a regenerative ag course, and doing that the way it's been, unfortunately due to COVID, hasn't really given them the best experience in terms of interacting and the whole community feel.
Yeah.
With doing online, and I've actually got a nephew doing that course, and it's been a challenge because the prac work and things, just it's not the experience that his mum and I went to uni together, so it's not the experience that we had at uni at all.
Mm.
To give them, because one of the greatest skills that you need as a coach is actually being able to interact with different personalities and actually communicate, so
Yeah.
and empathize and all that. And if you're studying via screen and whatnot, and not really getting into the paddock and getting hands on, it's a bit challenging.
You're
Yeah,
missing that step and that connection, aren't you?
yeah, absolutely.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and it's a
Technology.
different sort of community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're all stepping up. I mean, you guys are doing this, and pivoting and learning a new
Mm.
way to educate a bit more online, I guess. But you certainly do enjoy, and you see the lift in the community when you get together. And I'm very
Yeah.
much looking forward to that on the 3rd of December, when I've got a bus tour being organised in this region, where we're
Yeah.
going to 3 different regenerative farming families, and even finishing the day off with a bit of a Christmas party type thing, and a bit of bit of music and bit of fun for the
Fantastic.
kids as well,
Yeah.
just to bring that community spirit back in.
Yeah. Well,
Because
it's
we
something that's
used to
been
always
missing
have
in the
that
last.
end
Yeah.
of harvest and stuff, which hasn't been happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well, to do something like that, I mean, to bring people together in that sort of way, especially after we've gone so long without being able to do that, we've got the connections, we're getting, we're all getting better with Zoom and all, those sorts of things to still have as much of a connection as we have been able to be able to actually get to the point where we can be getting together again in groups, and like I said, going and visiting farms and actually checking things out and saying what people are doing. When you can see it in person, you can actually get in there, you can get your hands dirty. That makes such a difference, rather than looking at stuff at a screen or on a theoretical level from reading things.
well, that's right. Because I mean, in this space, really, we want people to reconnect with all the senses,
Mm, yeah.
um, and even your intuition, the feeling of energy, that
Yep.
that the whole lot, because you can feel a difference in temperature and all those sorts of things, and the smells and things, So,
Yeah.
and that's all the type of data that we need people to reconnect to, um, if they're going to go back to natural farming systems. They've become so detached, and got data coming in their headers and their planners and their everything, and
Yeah.
they could send a drone out, and they can, you know, there's a lot of technology that is amazing that we're creating it, My concern is the detachment, though, from the paddock that's often happening.
Yeah.
Whereas with regenerative, we're actually getting people back into the paddock more often. Yeah,
That's it.
and helping them actually design or put together. Well, I guess it's a lot of it's the decision making. We're coaching really around the scenarios that they can choose, but at the end of the day, it actually has to be their decision and
Yeah.
their connection to why they get up in the morning to do what they do that
Yeah.
drives those decisions, and therefore is the catalyst for the change they want to see around them.
Certainly. If you don't have
You
their,
know,
if
so
they don't
then they're
have their
more
why,
connected.
that's right. If they don't, but if they don't have that why in place, and that this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, that drive, they're not going to see it through. It is such a process, and there's to a certain extent there's a lot more work involved in doing things on the regenerative sort of scale. So that passion needs to be there, and that drive needs to be there.
That's right. But I guess it's it's like it becomes a self-generating pathway or engine, really. I
Yeah.
mean, we see people, are in love with farming again. Um, a true indicator of a regenerative practitioner to me is actually someone who's addicted to learning, because that's
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
Um, so often, as coaches, we're helping guide them into that next direction for that next answer, for the next, to take them to the next level of questions.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, and really helping them search within for the answers. We're
Absolutely.
not into giving recipes and a list. We're helping them, establish that list
Yeah.
themselves. So it's actually very
Absolutely.
empowering. Um, and it's very family inclusive. So it's helping every generation be part of that journey forward. So that gives it more resilience as well.
Definitely. Sarah, I'm just been looking at through some of your experience, what you're doing that I've seen online and things like that. So you've covered a whole heap of different areas. And we could honestly be doing an episode on each one. Where does it start for you? Did it start in looking into soil health to be able to then progress forward into the bringing more nutrients into the food, or was it looking at holistic management for farming, or where did things start for you? And yeah, so what was the catalyst for you doing what you're doing?
Um, well, I guess I've always been Dad's sidekick,
Yeah.
really. That was my happy place. Um, and I guess I always was questioning,
Yeah.
observing, um, wondering why something happened the way it did and not another way.
Yeah.
Um, I guess the main driver for change, though, for me personally, was that becoming unwell, because I really, the Cotton CRC is an extraordinary institution in terms of the level of knowledge generated and the capacity to share that to industry. It is one of the true success stories there.
Yeah.
I'd have to say, unfortunately for me, if I had got to head the show up for what I saw with my organic trials, I would have never actually brought the gene technology in. I don't see it to be necessary at all.
Okay.
And especially when you hear that the Japanese are warned of the BT, you know,
The issues.
consequences of having that,
Yeah.
come into the system,
Yeah.
and therefore we should have never done it. But I guess that's a can of worms there. But I guess I'm very grateful for all the learning steps I've had. The IPM learning the how to do trials and all that. It has set me up definitely to have a very good background
Yeah.
to do what I do. But it also was the driver for me, because I literally had a chiropractor in Canada say, could you stay here so I could study you, because I can't quite understand why when I push here that happens, because that shouldn't
Yeah.
happen.
Wow.
Your
Wow.
whole neurological system is wiring's gone haywire. Um, and that was a lot to do with my response. So I literally have that issue still today. I can actually literally tell you what chemical I've just driven past for how I feel. Different chemicals affect different parts of me, so not a fun trait to have, but I guess it's I've been calibrated. But a hell of a lot of detoxing goes on for me nearly every night, depending on where I've driven, because I might have regenerative, no chemical producers in my tribe, but I've got to get there. So
it doesn't mean the neighbours don't. Neighbours do as well.
That's right. Or, if a client has chosen to put something on, they really do need to let me know and give me warning. Because if it's, too many days that haven't passed since they put that on, I probably shouldn't enter the paddock. So I guess that led to me pivoting, to try and find Elainium. So I had 2 children under the age of 2 or 2.5, and I was in the Northern Territory. So, so we'd gone there to, chase cows with helicopters, and me to be a mum, and I wanted to. I'm not very good at keeping, having the brain idle, so I wanted to keep learning while I was doing that. Because I had been the Cotton CRC and then, Primary Elders rep for me and Darasot area prior to heading to the Northern Territory.
Yeah.
So I wanted to track down Elainium. And in doing that, I actually found her, of all places, in Kachana, which is a station in the Kimberleys. So that's Chris Hengler and Jackie. So in that one moment, I got the understanding of holistic management and soil food web. Under the stars of the in the Kimberleys. So that really did pivot my life from that point forward. I got a position as an ag extension at the Catherine Research Station. But I was quite challenging in the sense that I would really push we need to do the soils, we need to do this, don't quite fit the framework of a normal departmental person. And I went on to use funds from the NT Rural Woman Award to get my full certification as one of Elainium's soil food web advisors. So that was 2005, I believe, and that made me then decide to bring BEAR Biologics properly to life and go out on my own.
Look, that's really, really cool, and such a amazing story, with real consequences and real reasons away from chemical work. Sarah, where to from here? Where are you headed with this?
Oh gosh, I guess there's a couple of things I'd love to see. I mean, I'd love to see that the farmers that are doing the noicides and creating products of nutrient integrity aren't the ones that have to fill in all this paperwork. That the ones that actually are using the known toxins that have the skull and crossbones on the drums are the ones that actually have to do all the paperwork, because I guess I really do see that's another reason why we have to have our farmers really connect to their passion and their why, is because it takes true, determination and grit to stick to this, because they do have so many hoops they've got to jump through ironically fill in paperwork and constantly share their story or justify why they're actually doing management without these mainstream products, ironically.
What should be the norm?
Sort of like an oxymoron, really. You know?
You need approval to use those, to not use the things that you should need approval for.
Yeah, I mean, we've got just so much about faith, really, and the sheer fact that people seem to struggle to unpack the reality of on a cellular level, there's really not a hell of a lot of difference between, you and that microbe, that plant, that animal, or yourself, and to use a toxin in production of that so that you actually wipe out the function of some organisms or some, like the fear of bacteria and fungi just is quite, viruses is quite extraordinary when they literally exist to help our functionality for us to actually live. And because we don't actually comprehend or appreciate their function, we easily fear them and want to, have this control and obliterate attitude, when we're learning in regenerative ag, the more we embrace diversity, the more we encourage diversity, the more resilient and healthier our systems are, as are we.
Yeah, 100%. And look, the big thing we're seeing a lot, talking to people with, the struggles that have been coming in, whether it's the pressures from, it might be crops failing, or it might be, that degradation of the soil, all these different levels, the mental health of people around the place has always been a struggle, or has, especially, coming a bit further on, has become more of an issue, that, being happy in what you're doing, and being, seeing that benefit to yourself and your family, that has been hard for a lot of people.
Well, and often they've become detached from the actual factor.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them are chasing their tail every day, that they almost, are two ships in the night, and they're not actually having quality family time. You're seeing so much disconnect between husband and wife, or, dad and the kids, because they're on this treadmill chasing the dollar, because, they've got themselves with an extraordinary level of money in assets to try and actually be more efficient in what they're doing. But, they're on this quest of higher yields, or, supposed quality or whatever, but it's true profit that they really should have their eye on. And not enough have, and there's a hell of a lot of them out there that are actually, only a season away, or, of missing a crop, that the whole thing could collapse. So they're forever on the edge, which perpetuates the problem in the home, because, they, often the male believes, and sort of society does that to them, that they are the providers, they have to come home with the goods. So they put a hell of a lot of pressure on themselves, and often don't bring in the very person that, is there to support them, to share the load. And then I guess, often they do that in isolation, and because we don't have the family structures necessarily that we used to, and so, often they're isolated. And they're very proud, community farmers.
Absolutely.
So, and often don't want to share necessarily if they're trying something different, just in case it doesn't pull off. So
there's the shame.
it can
There's
be
the
actually
shame
really
aspect.
hard to get them to share. Well, and to be stepping out and doing something different. So that's also the power in this regenerative community, is that you have a safe space to, of like-minded people to actually share what worked and what didn't work. And it's sort of, we have a different attitude, that there's nothing negative. It was all a learning experience, because,
absolutely.
It's data. It's data, basically. You've learned something, take the learning and move it forward to the next decision.
Definitely. So Sarah, you were talking with Victoria on the phone the other day, and issues that people are having with mental health. She said that's something you're experiencing quite, or you're working with people quite frequently.
I guess it's really is, are very, very much a reality,
Yeah.
because there's a hell of a lot that I don't think consumers fully appreciate what goes into creating,
Yeah.
the produce that they get to consume every day. The level of infrastructure and sheer expenditure that goes into setting up a farm that they've
Yeah.
got to maintain, as well as keep the payments on.
Yeah.
And that nearly every profession that you could think of is something that a farmer almost has to touch on. You
Mm.
know, because they're doing their book work, they're doing their research, let alone for multiple angles they're researching
Yeah.
for the equipment they're going to use, what crop they're going to plant, what's making the most profit right now, what's future going to hold, should they pivot into something else,
Yeah.
um, you know, um, as well as keeping an eye on what consumers currently want, and then what might be the next fad, or
Yeah.
yeah. So, let alone keeping up with family commitments and what the kids are doing at school, and
All that.
what their partner might require, and or they themselves might require from a health perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a hell of a lot. Some guys, I wonder sometimes, with all that they achieve, when do they actually sleep? You know, yeah, because
That's
of the quality of things that they're achieving, as well as the research that they've done to find what they're using, and the innovation. They're
absolutely.
forever pivoting and realizing that the machine didn't do what they wanted, so we'll tweak this and we'll twerk that, and you know I watch on in amazement as they have it
Yeah.
do a totally different type of configuration quite often. So they are an extraordinary you know um, group of people that
Yeah.
often don't get the kudos that they should. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's there was the uh we were talking with Aaron Mears on our first episode about the fact that he was working as a mental health nurse before he got into before he got into permaculture, actually, before he'd even really heard of it. And he was talking about the fact that the number of he was just doing it on the on the coast down in New South Wales, but the number of farmers who are actually coming and spending time at the hospital because they were at the point where they couldn't cope anymore. They couldn't handle the pressures and the stress that was going on, that they had to check themselves into hospital.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I know that was his catalyst for change when he did that, and that was that ability that they needed hope. They needed something to do, and he found a video with Jeff Lawton about I don't know if you've seen it. Found done a documentary on greening the desert over
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Jordan,
Yep.
and he
Yep.
showed them that video, and all of a sudden he said that he said these grown these grown adults are crying, but with hope, because they can see, well, if they can do that there, shit, I can do so much more on my land.
Yeah, that's right. And the power of pictures. I mean, we really do think
Mm.
in pictures.
Yeah.
I have the benefit right at the moment, I guess, to help myself keep on track too with what I want to achieve. I have a mentor or coach, Karen Brook, and we were literally talking about that sort of thing today.
Yeah.
Of that we think in pictures. So
Yeah.
to create, you know, and help people create that visual of what they're trying to achieve.
Yes.
Or and I guess that's one of the values of on farm tours, and why I create events and whatnot, and have people share case studies, and one of the biggest values of going on farm is that when you can literally see what someone else is achieving, you can literally see their tools that they've modified and how they're working, and
Yeah.
you can see the crops that they're creating, and what changes they've made in their journey. You can see that possibility, and you can literally step into that then, because you can picture it.
That's
So
right.
if the brain cannot picture it, then it doesn't seem real. But if you can actually literally see those examples, then you can see that it's possible. I guess that's where we're seeing, the value in sharing your story. And I've been helping people even do those workshops with Peter Lewis, ex-landline reporter, storyteller extraordinaire. And that's been so much fun to help people, share their story and actually find their confidence, find their voice, and see the power in sharing their story. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Look, I think I want to know something that we can do, as consumers, and as the community as a whole. What's something that you can think of that we can do to help support our farmers and support our producers?
I guess it is taking the time to learn more about, that your meals and where that produce might have come from.
Yeah.
Share the journey with your kids of literally, thinking about where did all this come from that we're eating right now. And how long did that take? What was the journey? Can we source things more locally? Can we actually take the opportunity to try and actually know some of our farmers that we're getting products from? Is there that opportunity? Do we have a local farmers market that we go to and actually start learning? Meeting some of the producers. Like you look at the humble hamburger or something and unpack that and think about how many different types of farms actually went into creating that meal.
Absolutely.
And that actually quite, and then imagine picturing all those different farms and the different families that are part of that. And how much from an economic point of view as well. I was talking about this with Thames and Ravel, who's got the Farming Revolution YouTube channel that we're doing a lot of videos with, to try and share the journey of the different trials and different regenerative ag producers that we've got in our community. That I really like us to do more around that, of people really comprehending just how much, a potato farmer has actually in assets and whatnot to grow those potatoes that you now are enjoying as chips, or a broadacre cereal farmer, just the sheer infrastructure they have and the amount of staff they might have at harvest, and right down to the humble veggie grower that might have thousands and thousands of lettuces in, and you grumble about paying 25 cents for it. But if you looked at how much machinery and the packing shed and the amount of staff that he has to try and find, which often is hard to find, you might not grumble anymore for 25 cents. I mean, I've got a colleague that works in Samoa with UN and Women in Business, and she was talking about dollars she would have to pay for a leaf of lettuce, because it's not something that they grow so much. They do more root crops and cacao and coconut and things like that. And and I just like, can you say that again, please? So we've really got to be a bit more grateful and a bit more aware as consumers.
Certainly.
As to just what goes into each mouthful.
I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of being able to share that with the families and being able to break that down. Getting in and meeting the farmers and having that attitude of gratitude is that's taking a step in their shoes. That's looking at it. I think that's by doing that, it's very, very easy to say, well, no, I'm not going to necessarily grab this from the supermarket. I want to actually go and I want to know where my food's coming from.
Well, that's right. And I think once they learn that and they start understanding more of the practice and the love that's gone in, and why many of us are choosing to, to do things in tune with nature, and take away the chemistry, which interferes with the functionality of nature, then they'll understand why they feel so much better when they actually consume those sorts of foods, because it literally has greater cellular integrity. It has more nutrient integrity. Therefore, often they don't need it to eat as much,
And it tastes so
fuel.
much better.
Well, that's right. It's bringing back flavour that our grandparents used to talk about, the flavour of a peach, and you can get so many peaches or nectarines now, and you sort of go, that was a wet mouthful. That's about it. There's no flavour,
Yeah.
But then you have, say, a garnet plum from Goodrich guys there at Stanthorpe, and they're bigger and the flavour's just astounding, and you only need one. Whereas if you ate some of the other plums, you might need 3 or 4. So to be, sustained.
Satisfied.
So and satisfied. That's the right word.
Yeah.
And I guess that's part of probably why the humble plate full of meat and veg that our grandparents or great grandparents consumed seemed so small and perhaps inadequate to some of today, but it actually was full of nutrient integrity. So that's actually all they needed. And that quite possibly is why we're seeing so many of that generation still here sharing life with us, when, we're actually more concerned about the generation not much older than me.
Yeah.
And I've got a hell of a lot of farmers that I'm actually very concerned about, unless they change their practice and focus on their health a lot more, that they'll actually be, we'll be at their graveside before we'll be at their parents' graveside because of the health conditions that they're experiencing. Yeah,
absolutely. I think there's that big difference, and I've talked about it before, so I don't want to bang on about it too much. But the idea of getting kids to eat their veggies. There's that idea of, my kids don't want to eat the salad, they don't want to eat the veggies, but they want to eat the mac and cheese, they want to eat the chicken nuggets and all that sort of stuff. It's not because it's not because there's anything wrong with the food. It is because there's stuff wrong with the food. It doesn't taste good. I know by growing our own veggies. My kids I've never had a drama with my kids eating their salad, eating their veggies. It's never been a problem because they like it. They enjoy it. They see it themselves. They grow it themselves. They pick it themselves. It's been something that they've grown up with. And I know there's a difference between that and other family members of mine. It's we were brought up the same, eating the same thing. So having that appreciation for food and for good food, the kids need to have the same thing. And if it is fresh, if it is grown, responsibly, if they grow it themselves as well, they appreciate it more and they enjoy it. And they say, well, what are we having for salad? Well, I've picked this and I've grown this. It's a whole nother journey.
Well, and they're invested in it.
Yeah.
They feel that sense of reward and achievement.
Yeah,
because they've actually been part of that journey.
They've been invested their own blood, sweat, and tears into it.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So we jump on. We go through with all our guests that come on. We're just getting to the point where we need to be finishing up. So we go through and do what we call our six in 60, and so we go through six questions in 60 seconds. So nice quick fire questions. All right.
I'll probably.
Look, to be fair, no one's actually made it in 60 seconds yet. We've had.
I was going to say.
we've had a minute 10 is the best we've had. So we'll have the stopwatch on and see what we can do. All right.
Yep.
But before we start, I just need to check with Victoria really quickly because I can't see you on the screen. I can't see anything on the screen anymore, so I don't know what it's recording. It is still saying it's recording, but it all dropped off and disappeared.
Okay, I've got a flashing recording thing.
Yeah, so I had the flashing recording, but I was staring at myself before, and as much as I don't like looking at myself, it disappeared off the screen. So anyway, I got you back now. So all right.
Yep.
So Sarah, you ready to go?
I know I should have read these questions, but I think I haven't. Or
that's all right. Hey, off the cuff's even more exciting. Okay, Sarah. All right, off we go. What's a personal habit that contributes to your success?
A love of problem solving, I suppose.
Awesome. What's the best advice you've ever received?
going to say? Keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. I was about to say you're burning time here. So what's the one thing you're most fired up about today?
Oh, I guess probably I've been chatting a lot about glyphosate in the last 24 hours. So
Yeah.
I am really passionate about. I've spent many, many years hosting educators in that space, especially Professor Don Huber and Graham Sate and Jeff Bassett and quite a few other leaders in that space in terms of practical management options where, that is a chemical that has massive consequences to our health.
Yeah.
It's a reality. People just have to get that through their grey matter.
Yep.
Instead of fearing the loss of that chemical, get the reality in their head that it is a matter, it is something that they will lose from the toolbox. It's not if, it's literally when. It should have never been in the toolbox.
Yep.
So we've got to learn how to exist without it, and that's the reality. So I'm here to help you with that and just call out, because we are doing it. Plenty of people are doing without it.
Yeah.
You've just got to, bite the bullet and realise that it is a bad chemical. Stop being delusional and realise you've got to do without it.
Yeah, I think we've gone well and truly over the minute here, so I'm going to jump in and say we need to add one of our hashtags. We've got a couple of hashtags which we have is bioethical, support local, and demand real food. We need to add in ban glyphosate. It's just Anyway, we're going to have a whole nother episode just on that. But if you could recommend one book or podcast to our audience, what would it be and why?
One book, probably Minerals for the Genetic Code. It's a heavy read, but literally the periodic table connected to our genome, which is pretty profound in terms of nutritional integrity and how we exist.
I'm not going to pretend I've read that one. I'm going to have to look that up. So, what sort of personal goals are you hoping to achieve over the next 12 months?
I guess I'm hoping, actually, if I say this, probably a relocation. Getting myself back on land instead of being in the city. A country girl in the city has been quite challenging for the length of time.
A whole lot of reason, I reckon.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess, really looking forward that I'm, back in more time in the paddock, more consultancy, and working in a lot of new industry, new crop type stuff, and innovation. I really love that space. So we're doing a lot more of that. Yeah.
Okay, so the mystery question we have, we change up every time. So, what made-up word would you like to incorporate into the English language if you could?
Oh, we have a bit of a joke in the coaches. I call it, it depends on your name, but like a Sarah-ism. So,
Sarah-ism, awesome.
So we've got another mate that we're always saying Marty-isms. So where we've got some profound statement that we say, but the proof is with ourselves. So we call it a Sarah-ism. Yeah.
Sarah-ism. Love it. That's awesome. Sarah, thank you so much for your time. But before you go, what sort of things can we do as a community to give us a Sarah-ism that we can use as a community?
Oh, I guess really connect to the fact that you are a living entity, and all plants and animals around you are as well. And they all function in a community, as do you. So connect to the fact that what works for you and how you feel comfortable in a community is the same for any organism. And there's just as many organisms within you helping you function as there are stars and galaxies outside. So the diversity is quite profound. But the fun part is in the complexity, there's simplicity. So just trust in nature.
Love it. Sarah, thank you so much for your time. Before we go, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you wanted to specifically, put out there for our audience today?
I guess I'd love to give a plug for
Yeah.
my 3rd of December event. And, even consumers that are curious about how we're producing food in our region, like, jump on board, come with us. We've got buses leaving Millmerran, Dalby or Toowoomba.
Yeah.
And I'd quite happy to have to order more buses. For consumers and producers alike to share the journey and understand how we're changing up the way we're creating food, and we're making it with nutrient integrity without chemicals.
So how do people get onto that, Sarah? They, that's obviously like you said, it's really open to anyone. It's an open invitation. What, So how do people jump on board?
So look on my Facebook BEAR Biologics page or Instagram.
Yep.
The try booking links up on there.
Fantastic. We're going to make sure we've got our links and everything that's going to come through above in the story, in the comments, and the social world, where everything goes. We're going to have all that information there, so people obviously be able to click on that and check in, get in touch with Sarah. That's going to be available for everyone. But Sarah, thank you again for your time.
Appreciate that.
I've loved having this chat. This has been great. So
likewise.
Yeah, we might have to get you on to talk about one of the multitude of other things that you're involved with. This is it's been a good chat. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. To everyone out there, I hope you enjoyed tonight's conversation. I'm sure you did. Talk to you next time. Cheers. What a great chat. I loved that. I'm sure you did too. We had a really, really good time having a chat with Sarah. It was just one of those conversations that could have kept on going. Anyway, make sure you give us a positive review on iTunes. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe on all the social channels. It's been great talking with you again. I'll see you next week. Cheers.